You've always said you felt it was pretty much done. I mean, it does feel now like a 15-point gap. There's more than a hand on that league title now, isn't there?
Yeah, I think we've been saying, haven't we, since it kind of went to around 9, 10 points or whatever, that it was done, because it's just the maths of the situation, really. I think people always underrate what the opposition have to do, what kind of points per game they would have to go to overturn, say, a 9 point gap, something like that,
Yeah.
versus what you would have to do. And then obviously when it gets to like 15, even with a game in hand and all the problems Arsenal have got and all the upsides of Liverpool, which is that they've lost just one game, it's absolutely done. I don't think anybody should be worried. And now it's just a case of how quickly can Liverpool win it, and at what game will they, get their hands on the title. So, and how many guards of honor will they get actually as well. So it's strange, really, because you think the first time they won the Premier League title, although I don't like making that distinction, but you know what I kind of mean.
Yeah.
They did it at such a canter, and then they've had this second one here, and it's turned out it won't be quite as big a gap, but very, very similar in terms of getting it won early. So yeah, it's quite nice, and not a lot of clubs to get to enjoy the run in where you've basically got the league title wrapped up. So I guess everyone should really enjoy these next few games, and let's see when they actually do clinch it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what everyone's starting to think. When is it going to happen? So planning ahead, but let's just enjoy every minute, as you say. And I suppose jumping back literally to Saturday and the 3-1 victory. I mean, it is a cliche, but that game is literally a tale of two halves, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really, really poor in the first half. I mean, even at 0-0, which you would have said, okay, you can get in at 0-0 at half time. You've had chances. That's absolutely fine. That can happen in some of these games, but you just could see it wasn't quite right. There was no kind of zip to the play. It was very, very easy for Southampton. There was probably the best opportunity Liverpool had in that half was after 5 minutes through Curtis Jones. And then after that, really, it was kind of, they weren't banging down the door by any means. And as I say, Southampton, who are potentially on track to be the worst Premier League team of all time, kind of looked comfortable. And then not only that, had a few moments on the break where they made Liverpool look a little bit uncomfortable as well. And then obviously when the goal comes, that is, just a terrible, terrible goal to concede. And it just summed up the performance in general, really. And I'm very, very reluctant, and I tweeted this on the day, that very, very reluctant to use the complacency shout, because I think, a lot of the times, if the result's not going the right way and it's against a lesser light in the league, everyone will say they're being complacent, even if the performance has been great, but you've been a bit unlucky, or the opposition are just playing really well to kind of keep you out. The old people say complacency, I think, a bit too often, because professional footballers are very, very good at not being complacent and being on it, great mentality, and that's why they reach the elite levels. But that said, I think it's one of the rare occasions, really, where I would have said Liverpool were being complacent. And I think the goal kind of summed it up, really. I mean, Van Dijk in that situation, say that arises on Tuesday against PSG, he will be putting his foot through the ball and getting it as far up the pitch as possible. That he was trying to be kind of clever and shield it back was just, well, this is Southampton, that they're not very good. We can play a little bit more. And he took that risk, and then complete mix up, and the goal taken really well by Will Smallbone. But as I say, it kind of summed up for me Liverpool's attitude in the first half. And I think that is, I think that's exactly how the manager saw it as well.
Yeah. And to be fair, he had quite a lot to say after the game, despite not actually being on the touchline, which you can understand. So do want to talk about Arne Slot and two things in particular. But just before we do that, I think it's just worth listening to a short clip from what he said straight after the game.
It wasn't like you to make 3 changes at halftime. Was that what you thought was necessary?
Yeah, it was the first time. Maybe that had to do with me sitting so high up that you don't. Then when you look at it from there, you always feel like, it's a slow game. Where if you're at the line, it's a bit more. You see them running a bit more. But it felt to me that something should happen. I tried to warn them before the game. Tried to warn them yesterday already. It didn't work out, probably, as you can see the first half. So the only thing I could come up with is, apart from the quality these players brought in, is something had to happen. And it did, because in the second half, there was different energy with the team. There was different energy by the fans as well, but that mostly goes together. And as a result of that, 15 minutes later, we were 2-1 up.
What are we creating?
Yeah, there's quite a bit to unpack there. The bit I wanted to ask you about, David, is because I've seen people jump on the atmosphere in the first half, and I was at the game, you're in the ground as well. As he said, that Liverpool is at Anfield as a reactionary stadium, and it goes half hand in hand. So, as Arne Slot says, if the team are lethargic and playing it that slow, usually fans will follow suit, won't they, a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I don't think supporters should be criticised for that, because I think, it's always kind of been that way at Anfield, that the two work together and create something magical. It's never just been, okay, we'll turn up and we'll drone on for 90 minutes in the background, making a big noise, and it's going to have nothing to do with what's going on the pitch. The players have to give them something, and they give something back, and then it reaches that crescendo, as you well know. And we've seen it many times this season, never mind down the years. This is just how Anfield works, and I think that's the best thing about it, because it can reach heights that no other ground can, because it has to be that perfect kind of synergy. And so I don't think Arne Slot was disappointed by that. I think he knows how it works, and it is a little bit different to the continental grounds. But obviously, the highs are higher for me off the back of that, really. And the moment that Liverpool showed a little bit more on the pitch, and that first 10 minutes of the second half before the goal, they didn't need a goal. They just needed some energy and something to attach themselves to, and that is what kind of built it up. And then again, they worked together, and that's how the atmosphere improved and the performance improved. And but they need a little bit of something from on the pitch, and that's what they got a lot more of in the second half. And I think actually it's interesting there what he says about he just needed to change something, needs to get something going. I think that aligns really with the idea that it was just attitude, because you look at his subs as well, and he takes off Curtis Jones, who played half an hour in Paris. That's not fatigue. He takes off Kostas Tsimikas, who didn't get a minute in Paris. No. That's not fatigue. It's all about attitude and the energy that the players bring to the pitch. And he wanted to mix it up to completely change things. And he got that change when he made those switches in the second half. And Liverpool's energy was much, much better. So he didn't, it wasn't even fatigue. It was an attitude. And as I say, goes back to a little bit of complacency. And I don't want to be too harsh on the players for that, by the way, because it's natural. This is the easiest of the three fixtures that we were in. They may be, you just subconsciously feel you can take your foot off the gas a little bit, and that those things can happen. But of course, you occasionally need a reminder that if you ever do that, then this is the Premier League, and this might be the worst Premier League team of all time potentially, but they're still good enough to give you a shock at home, and so they did going into half time. So I think the manager was right to make those changes, because the players just needed that kind of kick up the backside. And once he did that, the performance improved, the atmosphere improved, they worked together, and Southampton couldn't deal with it. And Liverpool did that thing, which they always do when the atmosphere's up and they are playing well. They scored 2 goals in 2 minutes and completely changed the game.
It is something that it can just change like that. And I don't know if it's been missed, shall we say, on Saturday, but Arne Slot has to take a lot of the credit, because we've even seen from that first day, that first half against Ipswich on the opening day, if Jarell Quansah wasn't on it, bang, he comes off, Konate straight on. And it almost felt like a little bit like that. It's like he pulled no punches. You could hear some of the players talk afterwards that's the most animated they've ever seen him in that regard. Is that also his greatest strength that we've seen this season, that second half, he can almost analyse what's happened the first 45, change it, make tweaks, and that's what makes him an elite coach?
Yeah, exactly that, really. I mean, that's proven to be kind of a little bit of a speciality so far this season, hasn't it? That's something we're learning about Arne Slot, is that he is an absolute expert in making in-game changes that make Liverpool better. I mean, they still got hammered in PSG, didn't they, in midweek? But the reason they win that game is because of his in-game changes. That gives Liverpool that tiny bit of a foothold. I mean, it's still 27 shots to 2. They still get hammered on expected goals. But the fact is, they either lose or draw that game if he is not as good as he is at making changes. Even in games where Liverpool are getting battered, he can still have an influence on things. And so he did it against PSG. We spoke about Curtis Jones, the influence he had, Wataru Endo, what Harvey Elliott did, Darwin Núñez, of course. So he managed to do it in that game. And then again, against Southampton, his changes all change the energy of the game, change how Liverpool play. and managed to help them win the game. And so he's just clearly very, very good at that aspect. I think one thing he would like to be slightly better at next season is not needing to be as good at in-game changes for Liverpool to be slightly more dominant from the off in more games. But I do think, by the way, I've had a couple of comments on YouTube kind of asking, the first half problem, that this is a big issue for us. I actually don't think it has been recently. I think Liverpool have kind of shaken that off a little bit, but this was kind of a return to it. But I think it was maybe more to do with mentality than maybe tactics. But still, he's very good at making the changes that change the mentality, and the absolutely all those switches that he made at halftime worked, and that is a big strength of his, and huge credit to him, and something Liverpool are going to need to maybe lean on in the next few seasons while he's there.
Yeah, even a few games and ties to come up in Europe this campaign, it'll be needed. And you did mention a player there, Darwin Núñez. I mean, in almost 190 minutes or less than 90 minutes, because I know he comes off for Diogo Jota just over the hour, did we see almost the entire range of just how bad Darwin Núñez can be, but just what he can also do at the top of his game as well?
Yeah, to be fair, I thought that first half, I didn't think he was like hugely poor or anything like that. I mean, he's the only one who's kind of seeming to get shooting opportunities. And I know he has a wild effort that goes over, but it's a really tricky chance, that one. And, he gets that left footer off where he gets space, he turns and he gets a shot in. And obviously that's a tough chance, but he's making the chance and he's there. I just thought his big problem was kind of getting a little bit of service. And I think the manager kind of recognised that by keeping him on for the second half. And then, he did that. And Núñez has the big moments in the second half where he changes it. And I mean, he's in a little vein of confidence now, isn't he? He makes that impact against PSG, completely changes the game there. He is, of all the subs at PSG, he is the absolute key one that changes things. Yeah. And then, of course, gets his start here, gets a goal, wins a penalty. So he must be feeling pretty good about himself. And you've got to think, it's such a big decision that coming into the PSG game. I'm very, very interested to see what happens there, because I just think Darwin Núñez has surely put himself in contention with his performances over this course of the last week, and the fact he's very, very suited to playing against this style and that kind of man-to-man. He just causes that chaos with his physicality and his pace. So really, really interesting. But it was good to see him, stay on, get that show of faith, and then reward it with great goal. Because I love to see him in the width of the inside the width of the post. Really easy finish for him there. And then, of course, as I say, wins the penalty because they're panicking about what he might do next. So great to see him in that moment. And I continually, I'll say this for the rest of the season. His job is, before he goes, which is what we all expect, is to be as important as he can to his Liverpool team, whether that's coming off the bench, starting the odd game. And he's doing it. He really is doing it at the moment. And a huge credit to him, because it's be so easy to just, kind of clock out. And it's not been his season maybe largely. And, just think it's not working out. I can't wait to get away. But he's playing an important role here in Liverpool winning the Premier League, and hopefully can play an important role in them winning the Champions League as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Still a big part to play. And as Red Armchair supporters saying there, 15 points clear. It still seems almost crazy to say that, but it is a good thing to say. No two ways about it. And I know you mentioned the other players that have come on. We talked about Mac a little bit and Harvey Elliott. Did just want to play a small clip from the weekend and what Arne Slot mentioned around the substitutes specifically.
Second of all, of course, I also knew that Robbo always creates something with his energy, with his mentality, not only in the team, but also with the fans. And there's a reason why Maka is a World Cup winner, because he always shows up when you need him in terms of mentality. And that's also definitely what he brought in the second half.
Bit like PSG, it is right to talk about the subs and the impact they had. And whilst not dismissing Robbo, I think he did help second half as well. Did it feel for you like McAllister was just the one, because he has that almost football IQ in the midfield, as good as the others are, and as good as they're, running across the pitch, the intensity and all the qualities they bring. There's just something lost without Alexis McAllister in that midfield, isn't there?
Yeah, I just think he's quite clearly, for me, the most important of the three, really. And you really, really notice when he's not on the pitch. Yeah. I mean, I think that maybe is that because he's kind of the all-rounder out of the three of them. He can do bits on both sides of the ball, and so because he's so important for knitting it in that way, that's why you really miss him. I'm not sure, but he's just brilliant. I mean, he wins his duels, he progresses the ball brilliantly, he can give you something in the final third in terms of threat as well. He's just a really, really intelligent footballer, and he, for me, yeah, I agree. I think he made the biggest impact of any of the subs really, and got Liverpool playing in that second half. And as soon as they did that, Southampton just absolutely couldn't cope with them. So he's an absolutely massive player. And it's interesting actually in that clip that Slot references mentality twice as well, isn't it? Yeah. He's talking about what Liverpool needed, in terms of mental strength there and to get themselves out of a sticky situation. And maybe he hadn't felt he'd seen that from the others who he brought off, and he wanted that mentality. I mean, I particularly think it's maybe interesting at left back, actually, what he's talking about mentality there as well. For me, there's absolutely no doubt that when Liverpool do sign a left back this summer, which is what we expect, it will be Kostas Tsimikas who has moved on rather than Andy Robertson. I think we've seen over the season he is the clear first choice there, and that there was maybe an opportunity for Tsimikas to grasp that, but he's absolutely not done that, and I think that's why he'll be on his way this summer, and it'll be Robertson and another player who Liverpool will sign.
Yeah, I think that does feel slightly inevitable. And I mean, we mentioned a few subs as well. Was there an element, as well as Matt coming on, Harvey Elliott also came on, and it's Jones and Szoboszlai making way. Now, I know people will naturally think that's good rest for PSG, but did it feel for you when he talked about mentality? It almost felt like the runners were coming off, and the football IQ, the ones who can play the cute passes or make stuff happen, that was the big thing he was looking at as well.
Yeah, maybe you saw that little bit of cuteness was exactly what Liverpool needed. If Southampton were going to kind of try and defend man-to-man or kind of press you in that way, that maybe the best way to do it is the little passes around the corner rather than, in a game like that, do you necessarily need Szoboszlai covering ground? Even, he alluded to a little bit of fatigue maybe being the issue. But maybe it was just a case of we need more footballers on the pitch here to drag them out into spaces. And Szoboszlai is a little bit of a blunt instrument in comparison to Harvey, who will pick up pockets, won't he, and try and play those little short exchanges to drag players out of position. So, but if that was the decision, the reason why, then it absolutely worked. I thought Elliott was excellent when he came on. He gets quite a few shots away, just gave them something to think about constantly. Yeah. And I really, really hope as well that this has been kind of a big week for him in terms of his standing in the manager's mind. It's been such a tough season and so difficult for him to win over this manager. But he's shown, hasn't he, at PSG and in this game, how good he can be and how important he can be. I really hope Liverpool keep him around. I think he's a fantastic young player. He's only 21 and he's easily good enough to play for Liverpool. There's more to come from him as well. He loves Liverpool. He wants to stay. Surely if we get into next season, there's more opportunities to rotate there and we can see a little bit more of Harvey Elliott, because I think he's absolutely fantastic. And I really do hope he's maybe convinced the manager a little bit that he can be part of this team and he can play a big part.
Yeah, fingers crossed. He can still have a big impact before this season's done as well. And even a shout out to Endo, who just came on and basically kicked and tackled anything that moved for that short period as well. So they all have an impact that way. And media duties were interesting. We saw Trent on media duties for the first time for a while. So I do want to come back to that. But just in terms of sort of bringing it together, I think he just gave a few quotes here, which are worth just listening to about this weekend.
I go 16 clear, another massive week. It just keeps rolling on, doesn't it? But you've just got to dig deep now, haven't you? Recover well. Yeah,
that's the main thing. Of course, can't downplay too much how important today's win was. To go 16 clear at this stage of the season is huge. Puts a lot of pressure on Arsenal. So we've done our work in the league now until after the internationals. Now we focus on the two other competitions.
Probably summed it up quite well, and who knows if he had an idea of what would have come yesterday at Old Trafford. But he's right there, Trent, isn't he? This is not one we're going to talk about as any type of classic, but we went 16 clear, we got the 3 points, there were no injuries that we know of, and it's focus on 2 cups, wasn't it, for the week?
Yeah, there's very little point, I think, dwelling on the negatives of it, of that first half too much. Like I say, I think, I don't want to be too harsh on the players for the mentality aspect either, because it's just natural. They've got some huge games coming up, and you're playing bottom of the league at home. You are sometimes just going to naturally take your eye off the ball. They're not machines, the human beings, and these things can happen. And the fact is that they were too good for them in the second half, and they made it a comfortable win in the end. So happy days. And you still got some rests in there. Szoboszlai got 45 minutes off. McAllister did. Robertson did as well. So that will prove handy as well with the tests that are coming up. So yeah, it's not all bad. And the fact is, Liverpool got the 3 points. They come away from that now and ended the weekend 15 clear. They're 100% going to win the Premier League title. So yeah, it's as bad as that first half was. It's so easy to quickly move on from it, to be honest. And Liverpool got the job done, and let's bounce into the next two now, which are just absolutely huge.